Welcome to Life Workshop, where we discuss the forgotten basics. And here we go again, Mo and Bo, your most favorite host and co-host.
Hello.
So today's topic is relationship.
Oh, fun.
So the question for you is, how did you get, how did you find the women that you wanted to before?
Well, I guess it all started. Well, it would have been in school, obviously. That's where I would have first met people. And then after that, going out with friends and then meeting people through other friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that was done. And
of course, we are talking about like 20 years ago.
Yes.
We don't want to guess how old you are.
Yeah. Okay. Let's not talk about that. Yeah, that, and then sometimes I would just say hello. You would see somebody who was pretty or seemed interesting, and you just say hello, and you just have a conversation.
Would you like to have my number?
That comes eventually, but but that takes a lot of courage to do that. So, and then obviously online, dating sites as well.
Have you done
that too?
Do you do the swipe right, swipe left?
I did that. That never really went anywhere. That specific type.
Do you know why?
Well, probably because I'm not attractive.
Oh my God! Oh, I don't know. No, I think you're a good-looking guy, of course. But now when it comes to, I was expecting something else.
It was more like say like sites that are more inclusive, is that were more successful for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like my girlfriend now, we met online.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, it has its place, but the whole Tinder swipe, that never really went anywhere for me.
Actually, I'm not too sure how far that goes. Especially when you do swipe right, swipe left. What do you know? You just see a face normally, just a picture.
Yeah.
And you don't even know how good it is, if it has been, how new it is, if it is really a real thing. But it just normally say that when it comes to that part, it has become very superficial. And if really somebody is looking just for having a good time, just for something quick or something, sure, it might work. But for something serious relationship, I'm not too sure about that one. I mean, it can work, but it is like a lottery ticket that you can win the lottery ticket. But as a rule, I don't know if that's the best way. But the unfortunate thing is that we are kind of hooked into it. Even when you say that, even myself, for example, I have been online and I go for the looks first. Of course, that is the first thing that you see.
Well, everyone does that.
Correct. And then after look,
someone might say, "Oh, you're shallow," but I mean, that's what those are. Like, let's be real,
I should say this too. I have a friend of mine that he went on a online site, and he never asked for a picture. He didn't see the person, and that was his thing. That he didn't want to know because he didn't want that to affect him. Of course, that's it. I should say
that's a really mature attitude, in a way.
Again, maybe, it is.
It's a way. It's a way.
It's a way. But again, did it work for him? Not the best.
Well,
again, it didn't work. But
jeez.
But I'm not saying necessarily it's good or bad. But I should tell you this. I remember my dad when I was younger. He said, "Mo, if you want to get married, make sure to marry a beautiful woman, because if she turns out to become a bitch, at least she's beautiful. Otherwise, you're losing both ways."
Oh no!
So it was superficial even then.
Yeah.
just to be clear, for something. But actually, before I go too far, I want just to kind of briefly go through the history of this relationship, because sometimes we think that why the past relationships they worked better than they do now, which is true. For example, we see our grandparents, parents, they were together.
Oh, okay.
For the longer time, but the relationships nowadays, it doesn't last any any length. So one of the things, to best of my knowledge, actually, and I have studied this, by the way, I don't come up on things on my own. In the past, of course, people married because they had to. We didn't have gays and lesbians. That was not a thing. Like in Iran, we don't have gays and lesbians. That is, Ahmadinejad said that. But anyways, so people, they would just marry. That was the thing that you would do. And really, I don't think even they were looking that much for the beauty as much. They were just looking because they need to have a wife or a husband. And everybody's job was very well written and known by the society. And then you would have children, because the children are your future, retirement plan and protection. And because of that, they wanted more to have boys that are rough and tough and they can fight and protect you. So this was the set of thought in a very basic, way. And because it was based on the need, that the need never got met. They would never come over that need. The need was they want to survive. They want to eat. They want to save themselves against other people, as well as, when they are older, somebody protects them. So those needs lasted. And because of that, the relationship lasted too. Mm-hmm. Really, they didn't have much high expectation of each other, to best of my knowledge. Then as the years went by, as we got to know, to have better economy and, things started to evolve, then I believe by mid-1800, the concept of loving your spouse became a thing. So that became a requirement now. Before,
I don't think so.
This is how it went in general.
Of
course, okay. Generally. Yeah, and we had this conversation with a friend, and she said, so they didn't love their spouse? I said, that was not a thing. No, not much. To best of my knowledge, no, I'm not that old.
Well, that makes me sad. That's not good.
Oh, that breaks my heart. Get over it. That is how it was.
Okay.
Because they didn't have expectation. Remember that. The expectation was completely different. The expectations were set so low that they wouldn't get disappointed that much. And again, it's not right. Don't take me wrong. I'm not saying. It's just I'm talking about the facts that they happened, to best of my knowledge. That, it was just, they had low expectations. That was it. But then when it came to mid-1800, the concept of, you should, love your spouse or something became more popular. And then people started faking it a little bit. And normally I say in the society, I don't know why, this bugs me, that it's like a pendulum. It goes from one extreme to the other extreme. We don't think about it in a realistic and practical way. And that is what I'm trying to do. It has been Hollywood forever, that you go from one end to the other. And for example, the concept now is start loving your, spouse became a thing. And then they push it. And then as the years have gone by, we realize that, come on, yes, you do love them normally. That is one of the sources when you get together. But you know what? The honeymoon gets over, fades away. And sometimes it lasts, but as we know, most of the time it doesn't. Then it goes to a different stage. It becomes a survival mode, that we are just there. Now we just put up with each other. And sometimes we can't even put up with each other, then we break up. And then, of course, then the rules was, years ago, that the court system at one point was more in favor of the men. And then they swung the other way, became in favor of women. And that they make the divorces horrible. And then because of that, we think that, for example, breakups are hard on children, which they are, because we make them, because the law makes it. Otherwise, it doesn't have to be. But anyway, so this has been that way. Now, as the years go by, at this stage, we are at a stage that, at least this is what I see, very frequently, our couples, they have realized that they have something in common, or sometimes they don't. And then what they have male or female friends, in their lives, and personally encourage it. My previous, relationship, every time I would, actually encourage my, girlfriends to have other guys in your life, be friends with them. It's just fun. Of course, you kind of have an expectation that where the line is. And as long as you are, in an agreement, it's a good thing. Because for somebody, for example, some people hear this, that I found my spouse to be my best friend, my confidant, my this and that. Are you kidding me? How do you find that person? you know, it might be at the beginning, it might happen, but again, the honeymoon will be over very soon. And then as we grow, as the years go by, we grow often apart. We become more ourselves. We develop more identity, which it separates us more often than brings us together. And so the concept of breakup will happen more often, which is happening. Now it is that how can we handle that in a civil manner? That nobody, or at least with least harm. Is it good to break up? Sometimes it is. In general, if you don't have to, sure. But if it happens, then it happens. We give it a bad connotation. In some societies, of course, they have given it a lot bad, worse connotation. In here, it's not as bad. And then because of the way that we react to it, and the way that sometimes the law does that, especially if there are children or obviously financial thing involved, then they make it so terrible that a lot of people, they don't want to get into the relationship to begin with.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
Yes, that you become really careful because I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So because if I do, the consequences are hard.
Right.
But if we would take it a bit easier, actually life is good. And if we accept the fact that it's okay if we have different personalities, if we grow a bit apart, it's okay. If you break up or you stay together, doesn't matter the decision that you make, it can be done in a very respectful manner, very fair manner, so that we are open to the next relationship. Anyway, that is how I see it. But now back to this new version that now, for example, I said swipe right and swipe left. So we just go based on the looks. And this is the unfortunate part that, I have seen this personally, and I'm sure you have too, that the pictures that they are online, they are not too bad. And then you meet
you always put out the best picture of yourself.
The point is that 2 weeks after you see them and say, what the hell happened to you over these past 2 weeks? Which I don't know. When people do that, what do you expect to see? And I'm talking about the guys and girls. Yes, we are two guys talking now. We are talking about women, but I'm talking, either way. So
I've heard a lot of more stories about that coming from women. Like, that was very rare. If you saw someone's picture online, then you went on a date and they would look different or a lot different. They would usually look pretty much the same, But I've heard a lot more stories about women's stories about guys being different, more so than women, than my own experience.
I should say, I have heard that I look better in person than in picture. I'm kidding. I just made that up to improve my rating. But again, generally, for example, when we do that, we are trying to give a persona that is not there, it's going to show up. And then when, for example, even the things that we write about ourselves sometimes, it's not, for the most part, it's true. For the most part, I think people are genuine. But, if you just put something up, it's not, the honeymoon will be over. It's going to show. And because of that, some people, they become so negative. They go on dates and then, or for example, they start dating somebody and then it fails.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the real person is going to show.
Right.
And if you haven't been clear. And then one of the biggest problem, actually, I would say is this, that I'm not doing a good job of that myself. That if we set the expectations right, that what do you expect in a relationship to begin with?
Right.
That what is the relationship that you have? Of course, different stages of life, obviously it's going to be different too. But if we don't have the proper expectations, or we are not clear for ourselves, and sometimes genuinely we are not clear, and things can change. But again, if you just from the get-go, you do your best to be clear, obviously that helps. And again, as I said, even when relationship start again. As the years go by, or time passes, then we change, and sometimes those expectations change. So it's a good idea to revisit the expectations again. All these things said, I'm talking as if I'm a very expert, a big expert. Don't take my advice for some of this stuff. I don't offer it anyways. But so the moral of the story is this. I think if I wanted to make it very, brief, is really it's better to be as clear as possible. Once with yourself, and then the second thing is with the other party. So, for example, putting a picture that is not you, or it's a few years before, or all made up pictures, obviously it's not going to work.
Right.
It's just a matter of time. Then, when it comes to expectation, to really be clear, what do you want in a relationship? And again, even although you're very clear, sometimes again those things change. Mm-hmm. So as the years go by, to really think and revisit those expectations. Right. And then if the expectations now they don't match anymore, it is good enough reason to break up. Make the breakup a right one.
What do you mean, a right one?
Basically, we don't have to hurt each other. We don't have to make life difficult for each other. And unfortunately, the legal system does it. The legal system makes the breakups a lot harder. And partly because they look at breakup as a bad thing. I think, for example, in some religious country, that divorce is a very bad word to begin with. Mm-hmm. But you cannot prevent it. These are the fact of life. You cannot fight them. They should accept them and move on with them. It is like, when the online shops came along, Blockbuster, it was that, was trying to avoid it. Mm-hmm. And then it got busted. You cannot fight the reality. It is happening. Accept it. Move on with it.
Right.
If you want to stay your way, it just doesn't work. Now, when it comes to relationship and the concept of, breakups, it's the same thing. We come up with stuff. And the breaks up, as I said, in some, countries, they make it very difficult. I know that, for example, in Iran, it was, and it was very uncommon. I believe it is a lot more common now. But in here, as I said, the legal system made it very difficult, especially if the children were involved. Mm-hmm. That they would favor one party more than the other. And that doesn't go well. If it is unfair, it's unfair, period. Both party will lose. One party more. Norma says that in any war or any fight, both party will lose. One party more. And in working together, both parties win. One party more. So if we just change that attitude, the legal system would become more appropriate to accept the fact that, these things happen. Now I can make it, the safest way. And that is why it makes it harder. And then they become harder. One parent uses the children versus the other one. And then they screw up the life of the child too, for different reasons. And then, as I said, everybody loses. And no, breakups are not hard. We make them hard. That's exactly where I'm going with these things. Is it a good experience? No. But a lot of time, change is not good. Change is hard. I wouldn't say hard. I can say change is a challenge.
Did you just say that change is not good?
No, that's not what I said.
Sorry.
That's not what I meant. If I said it, oops. No,
okay.
I meant change is normally considered as a hard thing. So, but I would look at it as change is a challenge. Mm-hmm. And sometime, now in a relationship, if that change happens, if we just change our views about it, it's yes, for example, we want a relationship, especially if, for example, you want to be in a relationship, but the other party doesn't. Well, yeah, it hurts a little bit. But you know what? Look forward. There's, what's going to happen next. And let it be a very good breakup. And it's okay. I said, the view, if it changes, a lot of things do, fall in place properly.
Yeah.
And then we accept the fact that breaks up are okay. This is a nature, really is a natural thing. And then, of course, I should say this myself, when I was leaving Iran, God knows, lots of years ago, my mom was worried that, I'm single and what's going to happen if you get sick? Who's going to be there to take care of you?
Yeah.
I said, what makes you think I'm going to get sick and she's going to be helping me? Maybe she gets sick, then I have to help her. I said, how did you come up with this conclusion?
I guess.
And how do you know? Both of us, we are going to be there to begin with. One of us might not be dead. I'm going to worry about this when the time comes. I mean, you have forecast some stuff. And then how would I do that personally? By having a good circle of friends. And I understand friends, they will not replace that relationship completely. But I don't know. Actually, again, it's a view that we have. It can. That is where I'm going with all these things. It's just a view that we have, that we make relationship should be this. We have to have children. It's a very, traditional thing that we have to have. Of course, I know that this is changing in the new generation, but the breaks up are okay. You can be friends. It can be very much respectful and look at it as a challenge and move on.
I guess it can be, but when you say that they're easy and everything, I mean, feelings are involved too, and how, to say too much here, but I mean, sometimes they don't go so well, like you're saying.
I'm very glad
and it's because of feelings and emotion, and sometimes things that you don't even know until it happens. And then, like you're saying, make them good or something. What would you say? Make them not, or make them simple.
Look at it as a challenge. No, actually, I'm glad that you brought this up.
Yeah, because people can get crushed, like, emotionally.
Actually, this is where I'm going. Remember, I have said this before. The way you think decides the way you feel.
Yeah.
So if you change your way of thinking, the feeling will change. That is exactly what I'm trying to say. And yes, you get crushed because the way of thinking is different.
Right.
If we start thinking differently, you know what, for example, okay, she wanted to part away for whatever reason, not that's because I'm a bad person or something. If I'm a bad person, there's something wrong with me, then I'm going to work on it to make it better, that I don't do that again.
Right.
And thanks for bringing that up, for example. But if she wants to leave for whatever reason, then that's okay. Because the reason I'm bringing this up, because a buddy of mine, actually, his wife just left him recently, and he was a kind of crushed. And then we had a conversation about this, and as a matter of fact, he said that he feels a little bit of a relief, because you just change your way of thinking. That's all it is. Yes, I understand that it is crushing, but it's because we don't think right, and because when you discuss it with other people, again, they give you a direction that they have your best interest in mind, but their best suck.
Yeah.
That, if you change the way of thinking, the feeling will change for sure. And things happen. Again, so a change normally is a bit of I consider it as a challenge, but some people, they might consider it as a hard thing. Mm-hmm. And I would, again, instead of thinking about, oh my God, I lost this, looking at the past, or she's leaving me, or this happened, or he's leaving me, whatever that it might be, instead of thinking about the past. I mean, you try to amend things if possible, but if it's not, then get over it. Then think about what future has for me. Now that excitement of the future, can be there. It's just a view.
Yeah.
And I'm not denying the facts. Yes, you have build up a history, for example, especially in this case, this buddy of mine has a child. And I understand, it's a new thing that you have to now go home to a home that you're by yourself, and your child should go have something that shared parenting. I understand it is difficult. Mm-hmm. But again, if you change the view, you will make it less difficult, and you would look with some excitement that what future is holding for me. Remember, in one of the episodes, we talked about this, that if you cannot change anything in your life, would you like to repeat your past 5 years?
No.
And the answer was the same thing, no. I said, if I ask you, so do you like to skip 5 years and become 5 years from now?
No.
No. But if 5 years from now I ask you exactly the same question, do you want to repeat this 5 years? Again, you would say no, most likely.
Right.
So what's the difference? Why do we want to be in present? It's because of often the excitement that we have in future. That is where I'm going with this thing. So if we change our views, instead of thinking about what happened, oh my gosh, she left me, or this happened, that happened, looking in the past, to look for future. Hey, you know what future is holding for me? That can change the view. I know when I say this, it may sound like, you know,
where the hell were you three years ago?
What's that?
Where the hell were you three years ago?
I was designing the house. I didn't have my podcast ready. But this is exactly where I'm going to say.
Yeah.
If we change the view, in all honesty, it changes a lot of things. So, and I know when I say this thing again, I see some resistance at times, and even, but
Well,
when you
it's
start to
easy.
practice it, you will see that it changes your views, and it's a gradual thing.
It's an easy thing to say, but sometimes it's a little bit harder to do, right? Especially if you have a tendency to fall into, say, despair or something, right?
Yes.
It can be a little
Remember,
more
the
challenging.
process of
I
change.
see the value in what you're saying, though. Like, think about it differently, and you have to take, like you're saying, like you think about the future. You don't dwell in the past, and think about what you can do and the opportunities
Versus the thing that has...
they're coming to you, right? Yeah. And if a person doesn't want to be with you, then like, why would you be upset that?
And don't try to
if
blame
a
yourself,
person-
you know, that
yeah.
it is because of me. Sometimes it's not you, sometimes it's them. And
Yeah.
and if there is something wrong with you, and you agree that there is something wrong with you, then you decide that you want to fix it or not.
Right.
But,
Right.
you know, again, don't blame yourself as much. And if there is something to be blamed, fix it.
Right.
Because we have flaws, and you accept it, you fix it, you move on.
Yeah. And sometimes a person's not going to click with you, I guess. And they're
Very
there you
true.
go.
Very true. And to be honest, you know, sometimes even just imagine, for example, ourselves as friends, you know, we have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, honestly, how much time can we spend together before we get sick of each other? So I don't know. Seriously, let's be honest.
That's true.
So I don't know when the relationship, they want to be in each other's face the whole time. That I don't understand. Again, back to the very simplest thing. I keep going back to this. Life is simple. We make it complicated. If we change the way we think, we change the way we feel. Mm-hmm. And yes, change happens at this 4 level. Once the first step, you accept it, you know, logically. The second step is you talk about it. Although you talk about it, you're not doing it yet. You're a teacher, but not a doer.
Right.
The third level is you start practicing it, but you're forcing yourself into practicing it. You force yourself into thinking what's going to happen next, and I'm not going to think about what happened in the past. Mm-hmm. And what I'm losing, I'm thinking what I'm going to gain after this. So you just look at the positive part of it. And then the fourth thing is that when you have practiced it for some time, it becomes easy. Is it going to happen just after this, you know, podcast? Somebody listens to it. I know everything happens. Absolutely not. But you practice, and it will happen. Anyway, life is good. Remember that. So again, I would love to hear, you know, what you guys have to say. And if there is any feedback, again, the best way to get a hold of us in here is info@lifeworkshop.ca. And again, please check the website itself. And I would again love to hear, you know, if there are people that they can add to this to make the conversation a bit more mature and to come up with better examples. You know, that if you can help us, you know, mature the subject, you know, and to talk about it a little bit in a different angle that probably I have missed. Again, love you guys, and take care, and hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.